So, what if nothing in your life actually has meaning until you decide what it means? And what if the meanings shaped by trauma are the very ones that are holding us back? Today, I'm joined by Aeon Archer. He is the founder of SpiritSync Technologies. Merkaba retreats and Archer Shaw coaching. So he's a spiritual teacher who blends ancient wisdom, neuroscience, and embodied spirituality to help people awaken to their divine nature. So his work reminds us that we don't have to seek the light. We are the light, learning how to live in form. And together we're exploring how meaning, trauma, and conscious awareness shape the reality that we create. He has a podcast on our channel. If you have not listened to the other episodes, please do so. And quick shout out to Dr. Bradley Nelson, iHeartRadio, for your sponsorship. And to our listeners and our fans, please do not forget to like and subscribe before you leave today. So, Aeon, it's so good to see you. And this is an interesting topic. You say nothing inherently has meaning until consciousness interprets it. What does that mean?
Well, I'm happy to be here. It's nice to see you again. For me, everything is one. And so there's like this underlying fabric that everything happens on. And so, nothing has meaning until we make the decision of what it means. And so for much of my life, I felt like a victim to the world around me, my circumstances, my situation, my traumatic events. Oftentimes I was making decisions on autopilot because I just felt small. And so when I stop, even this morning when I'm sitting and I'm thinking about my life, there was this quote from Hamlet that came to mind, and it's in Hamlet. Shakespeare writes, "Nothing is good nor bad; only thinking makes it so." And so then I got this idea to have this conversation with ChatGPT, and what she was saying is like when you look at animals, because they don't assign the same, most animals don't assign the same meanings to things that we do. There's so many different colors and layers and depths to how we choose what things mean to us. Whether it's filtered through our values, filtered through our past experiences, our family's values. But animals, their primary motivation is to survive. And so to them, they're so present in the moment, they're only going to do the next thing that is pro survival for them. And so when I think of meaning in the context of the human experience, there are so many layers to it that the rest of life doesn't experience. And then I had to ask myself, okay, well, what is the purpose of the depth? What is the meaning of meaning? And so,
Yeah.
and what I discovered is that the meaning of meaning, at least from a human consciousness perspective, is to use the experiences that we're having as a tool to expand as spiritual beings, a tool to recognize the underlying fabric, which for me is love, the underlying fabric underneath everything. And so it can be really challenging to look at all the trauma and all of the chaos in the world and say, okay, well, how can all of this come from love? But when we step back and when I step back and look at my life and I see where I am now and the many different versions of me that it took to get here, the meaning that I place on all of those events change. And so it's interesting because we can rewrite our story. At one point in time, the events that were happening to me, they meant something else. They meant the meaning I had assigned to them were I was never going to be enough. I was always going to be poor because I grew up in a poor family. I was unlovable. I was unattractive. And so all of these meanings I assigned to my reality at the time based on what I understood. And the more I grow and evolve and the more I learn and know, the meanings tends to start to shift. And so now my past, which was once traumatic, in that moment, is no longer traumatic. I shift the value. And when we shift the value, we shift the relationship that we have to all of our past experiences. And then our life changes. And then the way we move through life changes because that meaning has shifted.
Mhm. 10 people can do the same thing and it can mean something to each person differently. It's absolutely incredible. And you're right, it's all shaped on our past experiences. So someone can go for a walk in the forest and be on their phone the whole time, and someone else could go on for a walk in the forest and have this big spiritual connection to the forest, and take in the animals and the scenery, and those two people have a conversation later and they say, how was your walk? And the one person's like, oh my God, it was so extremely exciting, and the other person's like, oh really? Yeah, it was okay, I was just on a walk. Like everything in life we bring meaning to. I don't know, do we do that because we need it to mean something, or do we do that because we're programmed to think it should mean something? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, that's interesting because, when we are living our lives assigning meaning because we are programmed, like usually programming is meaning that's been assigned to us or a way of establishing meaning that has been given to us by our family. Like what
Right.
was important to my family growing up? Like, what did things mean to them? And if it was important to them, I inherently am going to make it important to me. And so, therefore, in those moments, I'm not the author of my story; someone else is. And that's kind of where generational trauma comes in too, because when our family was traumatized, they passed that trauma on to their kids based on the meaning that they have assigned to it, because they haven't done the healing to transcend those traumatic events in their lives, and they pass it on one generation to the next. But the moment that I started to realize that, like, I'm capable of authoring my own story by shifting what things mean to me, that I don't have to accept someone else's meaning to an event or to a type of events or to circumstances. Like, I can create my own meaning, then I become the author of my reality. I become the author of my story. And then all of those traumatic moments that had kept my family entrenched in trauma for who knows how many millennia, it can go back thousands of years sometimes, and it travels from one generation to the next, no longer are chaining me down to this reality that I before I thought I had to accept things the way that they were. And you said something also that's interesting. For me, in my small town that I grew up in, I thought it was a prison. I absolutely couldn't stand living there. Like, everything about that town I despised, because it represented the meaning I assigned to that place. Was the place where my trauma happened. But then there,
Mhm.
I have my neighbor who was the librarian for the school that I grew up in, and she absolutely loved living there. She lived there her entire
Yeah.
life and couldn't imagine living anywhere else. And so when I look at that, how can two people live in the same place and have two completely different experiences of that place? But the place doesn't change. And that's what I mean by things are inherently neutral. The place didn't change. The place was always the same. It was what it was. But two different people assign two completely different meanings to that one neutral place that doesn't change. And so I feel most things in our reality are neutral, and then we assign them meaning, and that lens that we look through affects the way we behave. And
Mhm.
so, and our behavior is what is it's the relationship that our soul has with our body that's taking action in the real world that is manifesting our reality. And so, the basis of our relationship to our reality is the meaning that we assign things, which is why it's so important.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I quit using drugs a decade ago, all of my drug use took place near and in the small town that I grew up in. I could barely go back there without like feeling sick. And so for a long time, I avoided it because every time I went back there, it reminded me of being an addict, and like feeling that. And then, someone else is driving into the town and they're like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful town I've ever seen. And I'm like over there vomiting, like just so sick from the trauma that I associated with that space and that place. So that's interesting to me because as a spiritualist, we're taught that everything in life has meaning. But I think what you're referring to is like a detachment from meaning. I don't know.
Well, what's interesting is, that place that I grew up in, my family still lives there, and I I had done everything in my power not to, like, be in this town that I grew up in. And as an adult, and as I've done this work to heal, having gone back recently and spent time with my family over the summer, it was gorgeous. Like
Yeah.
I had a whole new appreciation. Like I was able to see the colors in the grass and the trees and the sunset and all of
Mm.
these things before that I was incapable of seeing. And so when I there is a healthy detachment that comes, like that's the very first step in redefining things for ourselves is when we have this distorted or traumatic meaning to something, and when we were re-exposed to it, it's taking a moment to pause, taking a deep breath in, and then recognize, okay, what is the meaning behind this? Like, why am I reacting the way that I'm reacting? Why do I feel that this is what it is? And first off, is it mine? Is this something that is this a meaning that I created, or is this a meaning that I've inherited? And
Mm.
from that place of recognizing whether it's a meaning that I have or a meaning I inherited, that's where like the healing can truly happen because I can let go of the meaning that was never mine to begin with, and then assign a
Mm.
new meaning to it. I can, when it comes to a traumatic event, like sexual trauma, because I've experienced sexual trauma in my life, and that's a really tough one to like wrap the mind around to allow ourselves to heal from, because how can I shift the meaning to that? Like that was a very violating traumatic event. But when I stop and I take a step back and I look at that, and I allow myself to recognize that all of the experiences in my life have been an opportunity for me to expand and an opportunity for me to bring love into and compassion and understanding and into areas of darkness where it's not usually existing, and that's all happening within me. It's not anything that I'm doing. I'm not bringing love to the perpetrator. I'm not bringing love, but just simply by me holding the frequency of love in the spaces within me that are torn the most, that are broken the most, like it's shifting the collective consciousness of everybody. Because if
Mm.
I can do it, it gives others permission to do it themselves. It creates this energetic roadmap that other beings who are here having this experience and who may not have the exact same experience, in the detail, but the same experience and emotion and meaning that I'm having. And when I do it, then it spreads. Like everybody gives, like more people give themselves the space to do the same for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're talking about inherited meanings, how do we end up inheriting them?
Well, I mean, when we're younger, we want to please our parents. For first of all, it really comes from safety. We're programmed for connection. We're programmed for safety. And when we're in a community of people who have assigned meaning to certain things, we will take on those meanings because the goal is for us to feel safe. And this is all happening biologically, subconsciously, underneath the surface. So this is meaning that is inherited before we even understand what meaning is. And that's just a natural part of how we grow and program and evolve and wake up enough. What's so interesting is it's literally this: we wake up enough to begin to recognize our power, to recognize our power to direct what things mean to us in our lives through our value system. And so, before we are doing everything in our power to feel like we belong because it feels safe. And
Mm.
that's the lower level brain, just like animals do. They do what feels safe. They're behaving naturally in the moment pro survival. And until we come fully online as young adults, like we are behaving in a pro survival in the moment way. And so therefore we inherit the meanings from those people around us in order for us to feel connected and safe.
Yeah, I remember growing up watching my parents like busting their asses, like working so hard, but they didn't seem really happy. And so it was like busting their butts to make ends meet. Um, and so when I started working, I thought it was normal to work all day and be miserable, not really enjoy what you do, just to work hard and make it by. So I thought like that was normal, like having to work as hard as you possibly can. It doesn't matter if you enjoy it or not. You're just trying to make it just to get by. I thought that was normal. And I didn't know what it was like to really enjoy work until later in life. And it felt strange. I was like, this isn't supposed to be enjoyable. Like work is supposed to be, tormenting me, kind of thing. So that was an inherited meaning that I had a hard time breaking free from. It still creeps up on me sometimes when I'm trying to relax. I'm like, should I be working right now? Because I was
Hmm.
so used to that, just all around, just chaos, just work all the time, work harder, work harder. That was a tough one.
Well, yeah, meaning like, I mean, I can see the meaning in that is I'm not valuable unless I'm working.
Yes, that seriously came up to me in a limiting belief session I had with someone. That was one of the limiting beliefs that she pinpointed in my subconscious mind was I'm not worth something unless I'm working hard.
Hmm.
And I, yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it was.
Which is cool because like that right there is the inherited meaning. Like you like that, your meaning. The meaning was like I'm not worth. So like it's those are the words that we use when we're describing how something means to us. And
Yeah.
so meaning is like our perception of its value. And so,
Mm,
and whenever we assign value to something else, that's a direct mirror reflection of the value system that we hold within ourselves and the standard that we hold ourselves to. And so what's really nice is when we start to step into our power and rewrite our story through the meaning process of choosing what matters and what doesn't, and what it means to matter. Like meaning is literally like that layer. You have everything that exists, then you have the events that happen on top of that layer, then you have consciousness, and directly after the conscious experience is the meaning we assign to it. So it's like
right.
directly after the I am statement comes all of the different colors in infinite ways it can be colored. And so meaning is like an inherent part of reality. It's a necessary aspect, necessary matrix, should I say, for reality to even happen. Because it's a table wouldn't be a table unless I meant to make a table, and then the table has purpose because I put stuff on top of it, and so I made the table because I meant to make something to put stuff on top of, and so it's like meaning it happens in so many different layers, and when trauma gets involved, it starts to get really messy, and then meanings get twisted and distorted from like their baseline frequencies of perfection, and so it's interesting because like once we start to recognize that, we can start to untangle the knot, which can be a process without a doubt. um without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the population has an attachment to, success, the meaning of success being like you're only successful if you have unlimited funds, you have millions of followers, and I don't know what the third one is, but there's this meaning that the like most of the society is attached to success that I feel like needs to be rewritten um, in what the definition of success actually means to someone.
Well, and that's it. That's another way to inherit meaning is societal. Like when society holds a common belief about what something is supposed to mean, and then we
Yeah,
accept that belief as if it's ours. Now we're inheriting that meaning from this expectation that society holds, and so the and so when we do that, then we are losing our power. We're giving our power away. But when we step back and we say, okay, I'm going to define what success looks like for me, then it's something that's actually attainable,
yeah,
and then it's something that can be maintained. And so for me, success is definitely it would be nice to have unlimited funds. Who doesn't want unlimited funds? But there are very few people. If you look at the grand scheme of things, there are not a lot of people who have access to unlimited funds, and that's
no,
okay. And if that's in my life path, that'd be great. But right now, success looks like for me is living in a really beautiful place with a really beautiful partner with really beautiful friends like you, and so success starts to the meaning of it starts to shift from like objects outside of myself to
mm,
experiences I'm having within myself. It
yeah.
starts to shift to like a state of being instead of like a state of achievement.
Mm. Yeah, interestingly, I was in a community of people last night that were very loving and it was like wholesome and there was no ego. And a large part of me was like trying to get me to push it away. So it was like, no, this is too much good. This is too much good. This is too much good. And that was interesting to me, just that observation of why I didn't feel worthy of that much love and that much
Mm.
connection, and that it was like overwhelming my body. Yet that is something that I feel like the whole world needs more of. It was such an interesting, I don't know. I just was contemplating after. I was like, why was I pushing that away? Why was I trying to leave as soon as it was over? Like, why didn't I want to stay there and just like lap that up? It's just interesting. Another inherited belief, right?
I can relate to that. That's something, because most of my relationships have been transactional. And I liked it that way at one point because it meant that I knew what to expect. There was no uncertainty, there was no unknown. Um,
Hmm.
and 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 love is something that is not like authentic, genuine love and affection that we are capable of giving each other, like infinitely. There's no cap on it. There's an infinite well of it inside of us. Is unknown. It doesn't fit into a box. Like real authentic love does not fit into a box. There's no way to describe it. There's no way to put words to it. It's only something that can be directly experienced. And
Yeah.
when I find myself in those spaces, it's scary because I'm like, okay, my nervous system doesn't recognize this. But the one thing about experiencing authentic connection is we can only experience it to the depth of the level of vulnerability where we allow ourselves to access. And
Right.
so the only thing that puts limits on that experience of unconditional love or that type of connection is me.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, how safe do I feel? And when I've lived a life for 30 some odd years of like transactional relationships for the sake of safety, because I knew what to expect, I knew how much was going to, it was always transactional. Um, it's like, okay, how do I shift the meaning of what connection is? Because for many years, connection for me meant transactional relationships. And so that's a much different place to recognize, okay, connection to me now, I'm shifting the meaning that I let myself know, believe, or trust that it is. To me, it's something much deeper. Now,
Yeah.
where before, and just anything that's different than what I've known for a really long time, because that lower brain kicks in, it's like safety, survival. And so anything that's unknown, it's like, well, I don't know if this is safe. I don't know if I want to survive all this love because it's unfamiliar, you know?
No, that's a great point. That's totally what it is because I'm also used to that transactional relationship where I know when it's going to start, I know what to expect, and then I know that when it's going to end. And so
Yeah.
it's exactly what you said. It's like getting in, getting out, and then just going on with my life. It's interesting. That was a great way of explaining it. Thank you so much. You just enlightened me there. But I want to talk more about your spiritual practice. So you teach that meaning making is a spiritual practice. So to any of our listeners out there, how can someone begin choosing their meanings consciously? Like, how do you do that?
Well, it all starts with presence. I'm always preaching presence on these episodes. But it's awareness. When I become aware of the things that feel comfortable in my body and the things that feel uncomfortable in my body, and when it's something that feels comfortable, I kind of say, okay, well, what does this mean to me? And in the acknowledgement of, okay, this means this to me, so this feels good. I like this. Okay, I want to lean more into this. But there are sometimes things that feel uncomfortable, but are good for me. But because of the meaning that I've assigned to it, I avoid it. And so it's this really having this really healthy dialogue with ourselves, to start to recognize, okay, because usually when something uncomfortable happens, it's typically one of two things: either a boundary, I'm coming up against a personal boundary that it's uncomfortable because it is something that's unsafe, or I'm coming up against a boundary that is distorted from a meaning that has been warped because of a traumatic event that I've had in my past.
Right.
And so I have to have this healthy dialogue with myself, and also I have to take risks. I have to take small risks that are safe, like even with my partner, that I'm still working on our intimacy and feeling safe to be intimate in all the different ways. And so sometimes I have to say yes when my mind is telling me no, because
Mm.
otherwise I'm not going to give myself the opportunity to expand into that. Because, like, okay, if he brushes my arm or something, my mind immediately goes to, what does this mean? Oh, this means he wants to sleep with me. And so, and
Mm.
it's not always about that. He just wants to feel close. And so, and my mind goes there because of my past experiences being transactional. And so it's all about like just checking myself. Like, what does this mean to me? Is it mine? Is it someone else's? Really tuning into that quiet little voice inside of me that knows the truth, because there's this little voice inside of all of us that knows the truth. And so having a relationship with that voice takes silence, takes stillness, it takes quieting all of the noise outside of us. One of my favorite things that I do is I will go out to the woods and go camping by myself, find a really beautiful spot out in nature with like an incredible view, and I will sit there quietly for like 8 or 10 hours
Mm.
and without my phone, without anything. Now, I mean, this isn't, not everyone's able to do this, so there are other ways to find those moments of stillness. Whether it's taking a hot bath before you go to bed at night, just some place where you like literally shut out all of the noise, all of the expectations of other people, the world, your job, your children. Just shut them, like just where it's just you. Because in those places and those moments, that is the only way I have found to cultivate a relationship with my truth.
Mm.
Because my truth knows the real meaning behind things in the present moment. Because meaning shift, events shift, things shift, people shift, relationships shift. But in the present moment, like my truth knows what it means beyond all the distortions of inherited meaning, trauma meaning, societal meaning. Like my truth knows, and then having the courage to lean into that, because sometimes it's not in alignment with everything that's going on around us.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that experience with your partner brushing your arm and you immediately thought, immediately sex. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I was in this community last night and there was this big group hug at the end and I'm talking like a group hug for like 5 minutes. And I'm like in this like weird ball and these people are hugging me and my mind went sexual too. I'm like, is this going to turn into like the biggest orgy of all time or what's happening right now? But it was literally just like spreading love and oxytocin. And that's immediately where my mind went to is like a sexual experience because most things in my life are all transactional. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people can relate to that. It's really rare to really connect with someone without wanting something from them.
Well, and what's so interesting is in those moments, there is no meaning. Like me,
Yeah.
you fall below the meaning, because there does, like real authentic connection is so present, because like meaning comes after presence. It's like you have
Yeah.
the event has to happen first, and then we assign a meaning to it. But in the moment that the event is happening, there is no meaning. It's just the event. It just happens. And so like that's going back to like the neutral state where I said like everything that happens in the universe and in reality is neutral, because that is the 0 point. That is absolute presence. And in the absolute present is where we can feel that unconditional love. That's where we allow ourselves to participate in it. But I can totally relate, because, like you said, most of my relationships in my life, whether most of my especially intimate relationships, have always been transactional. And so recognizing that there is so much more to that, and just allowing myself to be present for the love. And I want to go to this big group hug. I love cuddle puddles. Cuddle puddles sound like a lot of fun. That's what I call them,
Come.
cuddle puddles.
It's a lot colder in Canada. You'll have a shock to your system. Maybe I'll come to Mexico first, and then you can come in the summer.
All right, that sounds better. Well, I mean, if it's cold outside, it's the best time for like a 40-person cuddle puddle.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. So, how does consciously choosing meaning shift someone's vibration, perception, or spiritual evolution?
Well, I mean, the moment we shift into consciously choosing meaning, we step onto our spiritual path.
Mm,
Because where before everything was being decided for us, or had already been decided for us, and we were just along for the ride. And so a person who is on a spiritual journey has taken charge of their life, has stepped into the driver's seat of their own becoming, their own expansion. And when you're in the driver's seat, that is what you're doing. You're assigning meaning to the things in your life. And when we get to decide what things mean, like we are writing the story. Like we recognize that like we are the awareness that is
mm,
experiencing the present moment, that gets to choose moment by moment what it means. And
right.
so, and there are times where like I just feel absolutely blah. And Christopher will come, my partner will come to me and be like, well, "What do you want to? What do you want to? Do you want me to get you a ginseng? Do you want to? Do you want a Red Bull? Do you want to?" You know, he's just trying to fix it, and I'm like, "Ah, I just want to feel blah. Like it doesn't have to mean anything. It just has to be this what I'm experiencing. And it doesn't have to be fixed either." And so if I start assigning meaning to the blah, then it gets into this self-fulfilling prophecy of like, I'm blah because of X, Y, and Z. Then I can go into the shame spiral of not working hard enough, not doing
Right.
enough. And then that just siphons my energy. But when I reclaim my power and I just allow myself to be in this awareness of my experience and in the meaning assigner to all of the events that are happening in my life, not only does it heal all of my trauma, like almost in an instant. Because when I'm living fully present in my now, like all of my trauma was powerful. It was literally the manure that that fed my garden that is my life. Like it was the shit that was the manure that fed the garden that became my life. And so it's all valuable. Like, but it only becomes valuable when I choose to allow it to be valuable. When I choose to give it when I choose to give it meaning. But it only becomes like a garden of weeds if I allow it to choke me and keep me in that moment and give it more power than it has. So like meaning is assigning power. I can assign what has power or what doesn't by the meaning that I give it.
Is that why you call meaning a spiritual technology?
Oh, it most definitely is. I mean, our entire life, like everything about life is a spiritual technology. And it's just when we step back and choose to recognize it, like, mantra wouldn't matter if we didn't say it mattered, which is a spiritual technology. Breath wouldn't matter if we didn't say it mattered. It's the collective consciousness of all of humanity who has said these things matter. And so, even when it comes to certain spiritual traditions, like look at all of the things, look at the power a deity has. It's because enough people believe that it has power. Enough people have assigned meaning to that deity. And so therefore it empowers the deity. It gives it power. And so the real powerhouse is all of us. Like, and when
Yeah.
we assign meaning together collectively, it changes reality. Literally changes the very reality that we live in. Reality is built upon the meaning that we give things. Like the dollar wouldn't have any power whatsoever. We assign it the value that it has. We give it the
Yeah.
power to do what it does. We have chosen what it means. And that's the power of meaning. And when we step into that reality and into that truth, we reclaim our power to be the spiritual powerhouses that we are individually.
So let's talk about our nervous system. So, how does calming the nervous system allow old meanings to update or dissolve?
Well, I mean, trauma is very powerful. And trauma, like what's interesting is when we experience a traumatic event, it freezes meaning. And so what happens is it freezes meaning, and then any event that looks remotely like that one, we automatically assign that it means the same thing in an
Mm,
attempt to protect ourselves. Whenever something is frozen in our nervous system can't rest. It can't relax. It has to hold it there in stasis forever until we dissolve, until we allow ourselves to dissolve it. And so, like, imagine someone like I mean, I had a lot of traumatic events in my childhood and in my adult life for that matter. But imagine all of those traumatic events frozen in my nervous system. And the only
Uh-huh.
way the nervous system doesn't want to let it go. It doesn't want to forget it because it wants to protect me, it wants to keep me safe. And so in order for it to remember all of these traumatic events, it's constantly on fire, constantly on alert, never letting these things go because the moment it lets them go, then it thinks that I'm not safe anymore. And
Right.
so by learning to regulate our nervous system, we allow it to relax and it starts to dissolve all of these calcified meanings, all of these calcified beliefs that it's been storing since the very first traumatic event, which I say was the moment I was born, because no one is born with it not being a traumatic event. Birth is the most traumatic
Yeah.
experience I think any of us will ever have in our lives. Um, and so, but like all of these traumatic events are stored in our body and in our nervous system. And the more, and I have this I speak from this firsthand, and it's taken time because there it happens in layers. The more I shift the meaning, the more purpose I give my life, the more I surrender all of these traumatic events and step fully into the present, which hasn't happened overnight because there are days where I'll realize I was holding something that I had totally forgot. Like even this morning, I had a whole moment this morning, like I didn't want to do yoga, I was laying on my mat, crying about my grandmother having passed. I haven't cried about her in a while, and it was like 2.5 years ago. And so and then I had to call my mom and cry, but I had to get it out of my nervous system because it was draining my energy. And so like there are so many new levels of freedom happening as I do this work of repurposing the events in my life and shifting the meaning and having a healthy relationship with it. And so between me learning how to regulate my nervous system through breath work, through mantra, through yoga, like that's dissolving things. And then it's causing things that I didn't know were there to surface. And so when they surface, I see them for what they are now. And I'm able to do the work to to understand them, to see the knot, the energetic knot that was created from the traumatic experience that led to it in the first place, and to let it go. And then my nervous system in return relaxes even more. So it's this ongoing process for someone who's had 30, 32 years or more of trauma in their lives of just like softening so fully into the present that I can evolve.
Yeah, and it is a process. I mean, I think once we start healing, we want it to happen so fast. And when we feel those releases, it feels so good. And then we want more of it. But we have to remember that, like you said, like a lot of us have been through decades of these situations and we weren't taught how to regulate our nervous system. And then when you learn, it's going to be a process. And the healing process is like a roller coaster. It's like crazy, absolutely crazy, but so worth it. So worth
Yeah,
it.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and it's interesting. It's like it wasn't easy. It was definitely not easy in the beginning, and there were
No.
moments where I questioned if it was worth it or not.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you reach like this apex of looking back, and you're like looking at your life in this moment. You're like, why didn't I do this sooner? Because
Yeah.
like I feel incredible. Like I don't think I've ever been happy this many days in a row. Like
Yeah.
there's been those moments, and it's like, and then it's once you reach that point, it's kind of it accelerates a little into it, and then it'll plateau, and then it'll accelerate, and then it'll plateau. But there comes a point where there really is no looking back, and it's a really great feeling when you get there.
Hmm. So, Aeon, tell us more about the work that you do.
Well, Christopher and I, we have Archer Shaw coaching. So we do plant medicine integration, plant medicine ceremonies. We host retreats, 3 day, 2 day, 3 day, 7 day retreats, private retreats, non-medicine retreats. We have so many offerings. We both are here for your healing, your expansion, coming home to your body. Like we really are just opening the door for transformation. And we are all about just walking people through this journey, bringing them home to themselves, the love that we talked about in this Zoom podcast episode today. And we have so many resources. We have 32 years of experience combined between the two of us in addiction therapy, sex addiction therapy, psychotherapy, spiritual wellness coaching, yoga, shamanic healing, shamanic practices, so many resources that we have. And we are just hearts open, ready to serve. We are here to be of service.
Thank you so much for being here and for talking about all of this. I think it's so important for people to understand that, they're in control of their own destiny. Like we're in control and we're the ones attaching meaning to things that don't need to be that way. And it's about time we start rewriting our journeys and our stories. So for someone out there today, what is one thing you want to leave them with? What is one belief or meaning that they can maybe rewrite right now? Or simply, what is one thing you want to leave the audience with?
Your story isn't over, it's just
Mm. Oh, well, that's a mic drop moment.
beginning.
I like that. Because some days I'm like, I just feel it's like shit. And I'm like, what does this all mean? What does this all mean? And yeah, it truly is just beginning. The best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come.
To our audience, the best is yet to come. What more do we have to say? Stay tuned for more episodes and please do not forget to like and subscribe before you leave today. Until next time, take care, everyone.